Let's see. Interesting. Yep. Okay. All right. So if you can't tell, this is my first time using StreamYards. This is fun. And yeah, so we've got yeah, I'm trying to again for first time I've live screened. I've got my phone right here and my laptop right here, and there is a delay, and I was not expecting that. So hello, my name is John. Welcome to What Are We Watching? Um, Title of it, is potentially potential new live stream that I'm working on. Huge movie fan, love entertainment, and I want to talk about entertainment. So what I figured I would do is start with how I rate films and television, since if I'm going to bother reviewing something, it makes sense to, at least if anybody is watching my reviews, trying to understand where my head is at when I post a review or to post a review or a grade. So now, typically, like on my Instagram, I go on a 5-star scale. So why don't we start with we'll start at the bottom and then work our way up. Um, for 1-star films, I feel like you gotta be really trying for to do a 1-star film. There's a couple of things that can earn you a 1-star film. The first is incompetence, just sheer and utter incompetence. And in terms of franchises that I love, I think a good example of that is Aliens versus Predator Requiem. That's the second one in the AVP franchise. It's just all around poorly done. It's badly written. It's badly acted. None of the characters are memorable. And the thing that I always walked away from that film with is that it's just visually, it's 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 just visually dark, as in you can't see anything. Like there's dark cinematography where it's a stylistic choice, and then there's you just did it badly, and that film just did it very, very badly. The other, I think, thing that can get you a 1-star review from me is sort of cardinal sins against a franchise. So I'm a huge James Bond fan. So No Time to Die was a hard 1-star for me, because just a cardinal sin is you do not off James Bond. James Bond always, um, at the end of the film, he lives to fight another day, fight for king and country, drink martinis, have irresponsible sex with women, and use his gadgets that Q gives him, and so on and so forth. And then we just move on. And I never got what was so all hellfire special about Daniel Craig's tenure that we had to kill him and reboot it another time. Um, how they move forward with that going forward, I have no idea. Will see. I do not know, and I do like Villeneuve. Yeah, the Dune films are really, really cool. So I'm willing to give him a shot. So we'll see on that one. So that's kind of what makes a 1 star a 1 star. One thing I am trying not to do, and this is more recent, is sort of lean politics into the grade. So if I may give an example, it's like I'm a, I would say a, conservative guy, center, right of center. Um, but I would say like One Battle After Another was a well-made movie. It would be unfair. I think its politics are egregious, but it would be unfair. It would be unfair to grade it low for that reason. I think it's a well-made film, and there are people out there who will obviously who did like it and will. I was not one of them, but it's serving an audience, and that's another thing with how I look at talking about movies. Is if I'm going to review it, if I'm going to review a thing, I'm going to try and try to make an effort to who is this for, and sometimes that audience is not me. And One Battle After Another, I am definitely not the audience. And I'm gonna, again, sincere effort not to, for like one star should not immediately just like, oh, he politically didn't like it. 1 star should have a deeper meaning at the end of the day. So like moving on up 2 stars, and 2 stars for me is just general bad. Like it's not like it's not like offensive. It's just not working. Like either the writing's not on point, and usually it's the writing. You can get away with a lot of bad physical production if the writing is on point. But so 2 star, the writing's not necessarily working. Maybe they don't get the tone. I'm going to say, if I'm going to pull an example right now, I've got Batman on the brain. Who has bats on the brain? Batman Forever, I would say, is a 2 star. It's just not a great movie. I misread Batman as a character, what the tone was for the 1990s at the time, and it just didn't work. But it didn't. Wasn't like a movie that's 2 star bad. I'm not necessarily hating my life watching. It's just not doing what it needs to do. 3 star for me is where a lot of movies fall, and it turns out every year. And we of course we remember all of the classics, the Godfather, Citizen Kane, whatnot. We have these classics that we remember, and if you were to go back in time to when those came out, there was a bunch of there's a lot of other movies around those, and a lot of them were they were fine. And 3 stars to me is it was fine. It did the job of entertaining me for the couple of hours that I was looking to be entertained. I'm probably not going to add it to my DVD shelf. I'm probably not gonna watch it again. That's many films. So very recently, I went to the let's lead into something. I went to the theater and I saw the Jack Black, Paul Rudd Anaconda, and it is a very fun movie. And particularly if you came up in the 90s, I was 10 years old when I saw the original Anaconda, so there is that nostalgia factor. But one thing that the Jack Black Anaconda I think did very well, it's almost riffing less on that original film, and it's sort of a film about old friends making art together, and where like being in middle age, it's a midlife crisis film in terms of our lives. They didn't land where we wanted to, and sort of revisiting our old friendships and sort of rekindling some of that. And fun it's a fun movie. Amazing movie? No, it is not. Like, I had a good time in the theaters, loved watching it. I doubt I'm going to buy it. I don't know that I'd watch it again. But it tells a solid, decent story about friendship and following your passion. It really, really does nail filmmaking. If you've ever made a film, and specifically if you've ever made a film with friends, it really, really does nail that. It does nail that, and that's what really, really worked about it. So that's a 3-star. That's sort of the 3-star category. It's doing the job that it needs to do, and there's a lot of films that just do the job, and I in a world where we get a lot of, I feel like we get a lot of 2s and 1s right now. A film that just does the job of entertaining is, power to them. I'm glad for it, and you've gotten entertained for 90 minutes, 90 minutes to 2 hours, and for in the case of Anaconda 2025, it was closer to 90 minutes, which was lovely. It was like you get in, you get your entertainment, then you got out. Anywho, that moves on to 4 stars. Now, a 4-star film is damn good. Like, that's where you get into, this is a movie that, it's, really, really working, firing on all cylinders. The acting, the writing, how they shoot it, how they edit it, everything is really, really working and on point. That is a 4-star movie. So, and I'm going to blend this with 5 stars a little bit, because I think this is a good analogy. When I saw Inception back in, I want to say it's 2011, that movie came out, I would have given it 4 stars in 2011. It's a really good movie, and incredibly made, acted. I had an amazing time. There's very, very little, if anything, that you could pick about it. 5 stars, and this is where there's a little bit of a blend. A 5-star film I consider to be a legitimate classic. This is where when you get into like The Godfather, Lawrence of Arabia, like inarguably, if you're saying a particular movie is bad, like if you're saying Lawrence of Arabia is a bad movie, you're just objectively wrong. That's sort of 5 stars, and I do think there is an element of time that comes with getting that 5-star rating. You can be a 4-star film, and as time moves on and time is kind to the film, you can earn that 5-star rating. So whereas Inception in 2011, I would have given 4 stars. I loved it. All these years later, it's a 5-star film. It's really, really, really great. And I would say, in terms of at least my personal reviews, when you add the 0.5s in between, a lot of that is personal, is just a personal, it's feelings, which a lot of people could agree with or not agree with. It's like something like I could be watching, let's say, a 3-star film and it was fine, but it's a little like I'm liking it a little bit more, but there's things I'm picking. It's like I don't know about this, I don't know this, but I really like this. So just like I wanna give it a little bit more, but it's not quite there. So a lot of when I drop in a 0.5, it's a lot of just what's in here, what's in the feels, is how I'll grade movies. So in terms of how I rate films, you got 1 star, incompetent or disrespectful. You got 2 stars, general bad. 3 stars, it was fine. 4 stars, it was damn good. 5 stars, it is a legit classic. And that's generally how I go about reviewing films. Now, in terms of the title of what I'm going to do with this here, hopefully do with this here live stream is what are we watching, and it's literally that. What have I watched? What have I watched this week? And what have I watched this week? And like, is it something worth your time? I mean, and this could be something new. It could be something old. There's a lot of there's a lot of entertainment out there to talk about. And in regards to this week, it's we're going into the holidays, so it's been a lot of I have not been watching as much as usual because there's been stuff to do. But I did. My mother and I did go see the Jack Black Anaconda, which again I enjoyed. Solid 3 stars, which did lead to going back to Anaconda 1997, which in the does it hold up category, that's an interesting question because there are ways that it holds up and there are ways that it doesn't. I think the big way that it does hold up is visually, because it was a time where you did not have computer graphics the way that you did, and everything felt more thought out. There were not it felt like you were on set or in a studio, and everything felt tangible and real. And you didn't have that sort of wall between here's the actor and here's the green screen. And it was just very refreshing. And that I think is going to hold up for a longer period of time. That portion of it is going to hold up. But I digress. The writing, it's like so much. Let's just say I think Jon Voight is the reason Anaconda 97 is as entertaining as it is, because I am 100% sure that man knows the movie that he is in. It is a 50s. It's a 50s monster movie, and it's over the top and silly, and he treats it as such. And he's this larger than life villain that all of these other characters have to deal with, and it makes it very fun, even if the plot it's very, very boilerplate. But you got this great villain, and then you've got a really charismatic cast. You've got pre-fame Owen Wilson, Ice Cube and J-Lo, I think, work very, very well off of each other. And then it's like you got that guy. It's like that guy from The Mummy and Titanic who was all over the 90s. You need a snooty British man. Jonathan Hyde, I think was his name. I'll have to fact check myself on that. But you had solid cast, and it's a film for boys. And this is a period in time where there's not. You're seeing diminishing numbers of films that are specifically for boys. I was 10 when I saw it in theaters, and it was for me at that age. And you know what? That's great. I wish we'd see more of that. It's silly. It's in the does it hold up category. I know today's kids are never going to have that nostalgia for it that we did when we saw it. But that's going to be, if you've got a young boy 8 to 10 and you want to have a nice little monster movie night with them, you can't go wrong with that film. The other thing that I've been watching really for the back half of the year. And I was watching another live stream, and this was the topic of sort of more old school TV came up. And this is, television where it wasn't like Breaking Bad, where you have to follow it episode to episode, in order to understand what's going on. I'm talking about just sort of like the one-off, sort of the chicken soup television where, and for me, this was, I think of USA Network. And so I was listening to this podcast, and at the time, at the time I was out of work, and I had spent like 3 to 4 months out of work, and I needed something. Um, I needed that chicken soup television show to watch, so I immediately thought USA Network and went back to Monk, which was a staple growing up. And I think it's I don't know that we're ever going to see that type of show again, where it's just like every episode, it's just, I mean, like everybody knows the deal. It's like there's going to be a weird murder. Um, Adrian's going to have to, he's going to have to figure out how it was done. It was some weird way in order to find it. There's going to be some interpersonal drama in there as well. Um, um, and we're going to learn something. We're going to learn something by the end of it. And so I would say from about July, I'd been marathoning through Monk over the back half of the year, and it was it's a very pleasant experience. And I wish there were more shows like that. I just don't know how the culture is and how we consume media between streaming and whether it be streaming, cable, YouTube. It's just we're not going to have quite that shared experience again. But it's an excellent show, and if I 100% recommend it for. I mean, particularly if you're going through any kind of hard time. It has now for me what a chicken soup show really, really does need is sort of a core group of family characters, which Monk does have. You have Monk, and you have Adrian, and his assistant. Whether in the first couple of seasons it was Sharona, and then Natalie took over in season 3, and then you got the captain and Lieutenant Disher, and most of it's this core group, and they have this really nice. They have this nice relationship between the group of them. And what struck me this time around is that the extent to which it is a family show, because it really is, as much as it's a murder of the week show, it's very much geared towards it's geared towards humor. It's geared towards, if you're, I would say, between 10 and 15. I think by the time you're 15, you're going to be getting too old for it. There's that period when you're a teenager, when you're too cool for school, and you move on to whether it's Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and sort of that grittier material. But that's a lot of jokes geared toward a younger audience, but sort of moving them into sort of more adult material, which was interesting to watch this time around. And this is the second time through I've watched this show in its entirety. But I just figured for to start off, since this is where where I'm at. Let's just go through season by season and pull the best ofs for this show. And what was the other thing was interesting was I always remembered there being more episodes per season. There were only, because back in early 2000s, regularly you'd have 20 some odd episodes a season, and this one did not. It was only 16 episodes a season. But and start with season 1. I would say my favorite for that season. There was million. And a lot of these are just what do I remember? What do you remember from when you were a kid? And did it stick with you? And if it stuck with you for that long, it means they did something particularly well with the episode. And season 1, you had Mr. Monk and the Billionaire Mugger. And obviously, this is an old show, so spoilers. Not that anybody is just oh my God, they're spoiling this 20-year-old show. But the Billionaire Mugger was sort of a quintessential version of what the show was. It's a weird murder that how did this happen? And the concept was this really rich guy gets killed mugging this other guy. Um, and it turns out that sort of the twist is that way back when he was in college, he had a friend of his fake a similar scenario so that he faked a similar scenario so that he could look good on a date. And years later, the murderer flips it because flips that in order to make him look like just a crazy billionaire. So it's like really, really eccentric, but it's something that you could. It's within the realm of suspension of disbelief. It's that type of thing that this show did really, really well. And I would say my runner up for season one was Mr. Monk and the Redheaded Stranger, which was a consistent thing I think through the show, was really good cameo sequences, and basically Mr. Monk having to get Willie Nelson of all people off of a murder charge, which was really, really fun, and they managed to loop in some fun stuff with his wife, and both of Monk and his wife were big Willie Nelson fans, and it has sort of ends in a very endearing way, and it was a good use of a guest star. Season two, I would say the most the one that was most clever to me was Mr. Monk and the Sleeping Suspect, which for that one they had a series of bombings that was sort of timed out, and the killer had sort of accidentally fell into ending up in a coma and running into the perfect quote unquote perfect alibi. And so you've got the alibi that's an accident, but then you've got the actual crime that they have to he's got to pull the clues and solve. So again, it's just and season two has a lot of really, really great episodes. And I don't know if that's just, sort of peak when I was watching it when I was a kid, but you got the one where he goes to Mexico, which I always remembered. You've got the Mr. Monk goes to the circus, where a guy gets his head crushed by an elephant, which that stuck that one stuck with me. The runner up though, and this is largely for character reasons, was Mr. Monk Meets the Playboy, where essentially you have obvious Hugh Hefner offs a guy, and we have to Monk's got to figure out how he did it. But the scene I like in that one is you've got he tries to weaponize. You've got Sharona, who has a past to took some risque pictures to make it by, that he then tries to blackmail her with, and she has this really, really delightful moment with her son, where she has to after the attempted blackmail, she rather than cave to it, she flat out tells her kid, it's like, look, I've got, it's like, back in the day, X, Y, and Z happened, and I'm not happy about it, but we can't let faux Hugh Hefner get away with it. And it was just sort of it had some really nice character moments between Sharona and her son, and then really with Adrian not wanting to see his partner hurt. So it's just some good shtick in terms of the general concepts of the show, and then some really nice character moments. Season 3, I think the finale takes the cake, where a little had to have been 2 or 3-year-old finds the murder victim, and Monk takes him in for a bit, and it does a lot beyond it's the murder plots works beyond the murder plot. What really works about it is those sort of universal things of the idea of fatherhood is very attractive to him, but by the end of it, he considers really adopting this kid, but then he has to acknowledge that he's not, given that he is obsessive compulsive. I can't, like, I would love to be able to do this, but I can't. This is not a thing I can do. Um, because I can't take care of me, let alone a kid. And then there's a lot of really, really sweet moments between Tony Shalhoub and this child actor, and that was, I would say, the top for that season. Behind that, Mr. Monk and the Game Show, I really liked. You had a good this was a cameo from Bob Gunton, of Shawshank Redemption fame, as his wife Trudy's father, and that it's sort of, so there's the bad guys in this one are gaming this. They're cheating on the game show that his father-in-law is producing, and he's got to figure that one out. But what is, I think, really, really quite nice about that episode is seeing his wife was, the running thing is his wife was murdered, that he still has a relationship with his in-laws, and it's a very, very sweet relationship. And you get little glimpses into how, when being the parents, your daughter bringing home this guy with problems, and how they sort of end up welcoming him in, is there's a lot to talk up about that episode. Season 4, I'm going to try to pick up the pace just a spell. Probably the biggest episode, like the best one, is Mr. Monk and the Astronaut. They have really good villain with this sort of upstanding guy who's been to space. Like, how did he commit this crime while being in space? And he's this guy, this character, just obvious villain, is so overconfident that multiple times he practically admits to it, but it's like, how did he kill her whilst he was in space? And that's sort of like the conceit of the show that really keeps, I think, the audience hooked, is like, we know there's a hook. We know they did it. A lot of the culprits are often very, very obvious, but what's the hook what's the hook where they did it, where they think they can get away with it? And that's sort of what was fun. That I actually pulled two runner-ups for season 4. Mr. Monk Goes to a Fashion Show, largely because Malcolm McDowell is the villain in that one, and Malcolm McDowell is just great in everything he's in, and he's got some of the same foibles that Monk does, which is sort of fun. Like, there's sort of some fun playing off of each other in that way, and then it's just authentically, in terms of fashion as an industry, it really does sort of nail how skeevy it is. And the other one I really like this season, Mr. Monk Goes to the Dentist. It was a nice Lieutenant Disher episode, and Disher he really is the comic relief of the show. Like, he is the character that the kids, the young boys, are there to laugh at, because he presents these these obviously dumb, like, this is how it happens, but scenarios that are just obviously comic, and realistically, like, he would have gotten fired a long time ago, but it makes for a good laugh. And what this episode does really well with that is that a good chunk of what they're doing with that one is that, okay, yeah, he's got a lot of stupid ideas, but he doesn't like being ragged on all the time, and that does get to him. And at the end of the day, he has skills. It might take him a little while to get from point A to point B, but there's a reason he is where he is, and it's sort of a good sort of side character episode. Season 5, Mr. Monk and the Garbage Strike, I think, is maybe one of the most classic episodes of it. You're putting your main character in the worst possible scenario for all of his foibles and fears. A lot of great moments. There's a ton of like the back half of the title sequence to the show. There's a ton of clips they pull from that episode specifically, and it's great. My runner-up for season 5 was Mr. Monk Goes to a Rock Concert, which this was a good Captain Stottlemyre episode. And the second, my second run through on this episode, Stottlemyre is a great character, and Ted Levine is a really, really great actor, and he brings this he brings this warmth to it. He's this guy's gun-toting police captain who is a guy's guy, but what the show does really well with him as a character is loop in that this is a man with empathy. After it's sort of like within the context of the entirety of the show, he's Monk's 6th partner. So you've gone through all these guys who can't manage to see Adrian's humanity, and this is the guy who manages to do it, and they become good friends, and he pushes back on Adrian when he needs to, but it's this they have this really good push and pull, and it requires that bit of empathy to see past somebody's foibles. And Mr. Monk Goes to a Rock Concert. This one, I would be interested to see if at some point for Stottlemyre as a character, he gets divorced in the previous, like 1 or 2 seasons before. I'd be interested to know. I don't know for sure whether we either couldn't get the actress, or we realized that his initial wife, it doesn't make any sense at all that this 60s hippie would be with this gun-toting cop, and that doesn't work. We need to move on. So they get divorced. So this particular episode, he's like his son plays hooky to go to a rock concert, and he's got to find his kid, and it's really about him connecting with his kid. So again, another really good sort of bottle character episode, and that's what these chicken soup shows do. I think very well. If you've got the rounded cast, you've got your main character, but you carve out room for episodes that center around your supporting cast, and that's what ends up making them giving them a rounded sort of very family feel, and that did it quite well. Season 6, the main episode I pulled, Mr. Monk and the Buried Treasure, I would say was the top for me this season, and that was Monk's therapist, his kid, sort of dragging him around. They pull a map off a dead guy, and there's a lot of plot points, that they sort of are. Oh God, yeah, that they're pulling around, but basically, it's sort of the sort of part of the hook is that the therapist is great in session. Outside of it, his life is a little chaotic, and Dr. Kroger's son doesn't get along with his son, and his son having to spend the day with Adrian all of a sudden gets a little bit of a sense of he gets the sense of, oh, this is what my dad puts up with day to day. Maybe I should cut him a little bit of slack. And it's sort of a nice, again, looping in surrounding characters to fill them out a little bit. And then my runner-up for season 6 was Mr. Monk and the Birds and the Bees, where he has a really, really nice scene with Natalie's daughter, talking about dating. It's like, again, a conversation he's uncomfortable with and doesn't want to have, but ultimately he rises to the occasion and has this sort of really meaningful conversation with his partner's daughter, and it's quite lovely. Season 7, Mr. Monk Falls in Love was my top for that season. presenting him in it sort of presents him in a situation he hasn't been in before, with the idea that he might be able to get beyond his wife and actually date again. And it's to the point where everyone else in the show is telling him she might be the guy, and he has to sort of grapple with that, and ultimately at the end of it, land on the fact that she wasn't the guy, but the mother was the guy, and he's not going to betray his for the sake of a woman. He's not going to. It's like, your mom. It's like, I really care about you, but your mom's the guy. And it's just a lot. There's just a lot of really delightful moments in it. And then runner up, Mr. Monk is underwater. They put him on a submarine, which again, take somebody who with all of these fears and drop him into the worst possible place. It's never a bad scenario for an episode. And that one had Dickless from Ghostbusters is the villain, which you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong with Dickless from Ghostbusters. And he just play. I mean, it's like I feel like as an actor, it's got to be good if you have a lane that is very, very useful, you're not going to have a problem, because you always need that. You need that jackass EPA agent, or in Die Hard, you need the dipshit reporter. You need that character, and he filled that very, very, very well. All right, so this brings us to the last season. My favorite episode last season was the third from the end, Mr. Monk and the Badge. We went through this whole show. He's grappling with his fears, and he finally gets his badge back in this episode. And we learn, the audience learns, and he learns that he can handle doing the job. But after all of this amount of time, between time and technology, the job has changed, and he's found that there are other things he likes to do, but it's not his fears that are holding him back anymore. It's just, it's really about what is making him happy. And that's I think was delightful going into the end. And the show did have, not a lot of shows have a solid ending. This show really did manage to really wrap it up in a very, very endearing way. And I will say the other thing it never did get too into the weeds on, and X-Files did get into the weeds on it, was the mythology stuff, to the point where the X-Files failed two times to have a good ending. This, Monk never dug itself into too giant a hole with the investigation on his wife. It was like an episode here or there every other season, and then they sort of wrapped it up very simply at the end. And it allowed for, you have a sick day, you can marathon a couple of these episodes, and it's not a huge commitment. It's a show that you can pick up, put down, watch, and have a good time. And I would recommend it. It is one of those, again, sick day shows that I absolutely would recommend anybody pick up and watch. It's really delightful, and it's maybe a little bit ridiculous, the number of fears they give Monk as a character, but what that does, I think, effectively is sort of open it up to the entire audience as to what are your fears, and you can sort of project them onto him. And some of those fears end up making him a little bit of a dick, and he has to learn from his friends. His friends have to learn from him. And it's just like all around good entertainment. It's good family entertainment. And I wish we have so many options in terms of where to watch content. Sometimes I think if there was a little less that it might be good that we could get back to like something a little bit more simple. Like we could use a little bit more simple right now. And then they did in 2023. In 2023, they did after COVID, they did a revival movie for Peacock, and they actually managed to do a good revival. It felt like an old school episode, and the really smart thing that revival did was just drill it down to what sort of the core thing that people looked for from the show, which was impossible murder. How did they make it happen? How did this killer manage to accomplish this? Um, in an effort to not get caught. And it does some really fun stuff with, like, the villain is obvious Jeff Bezos, which was fairly funny. And then it mixed it in with this really they had some serious messaging that they wanted to put in, that was in terms of really bringing awareness to depression, and it does an excellent job with it. It's definitely it's very obvious, but they don't get it doesn't get too super. It's on the nose without clocking you over the head with a baseball bat. So I would say the entire Adrian Monk experience is really good after work. It's good after work programming. It's good sick day programming. You got a nice little family of characters, and it's definitely one you should check out. And that's sort of been like the back half of, like, that's sort of how I've been spending, I spent the unemployed version, the unemployed months of 2025 was spent on that show, and I don't regret it, because it's high recommend, five star out of 5 shows. And if you're Gen Z, you'll get a nice little taste of. And this is really any show starting in early 2000 that ends in like 2009. You're going to get that. You're going to see that progression of technology and how the world changed. It's really wild to revisit it 10 years later. So on that level, it's very, very worth it. So definitely check out Adrian Monk. The other thing, other movie I checked out last week, that I will mostly recommend is Life of Chuck. It's on Hulu. Stephen King adaptation from Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is I haven't seen all of his stuff, but I really liked Dr. Sleep. He's obviously an incredibly talented filmmaker with a passion for Stephen King. This was a really interesting movie, and you have to go into it wanting to be philosophical, is how you have to tackle it, because it's not a traditional narrative. It has sort of this telling the story backwards shtick, and which mostly works. But the interesting thing for me is you almost have to look at Life of Chuck from the perspective of an atheist. Because definitely classically, Stephen King, not a big religious guy. It feels like it, and I guess spoiler alert, the first third of the way the first third of the film is, when you consider the end of the first third, it's a little depressing if you believe in a higher power, because the first third is looking at life as if, like, once it's done, that's it and it's over. And if that depresses you, which that concept, I mean, it depresses me, it sort of colors the rest of the film. And what the rest of the film is trying to do, and I think does quite well, is like, here are the things that are great. Like, it's like, death sucks, but like, here are the great things about life. And life is this beautiful, whatever may happen, life is this beautiful thing. And I think that's the version of atheism that's that's optimistic, and I'm going to give it points for that. It's just I do think the top third of the film colors the rest of it with a little bit of a dour note. So you gotta I recommend Life of Chuck? Yes, it's a very well made, well acted. It really does make you think, but you have to want a philosophical movie, and you have to be in the mood for it. It's very much it's something you got to be in the mood for. But I mean, definitely check it out. There's less Tom Hiddleston in it than you would think based on the posters. He's really very much more in the background, but solid film. So definitely check it out. And I think that's going to wrap us up for today, for my ramblings for the day. And I'm going to try to plan a little bit more next week and be, things are, on my end are just, just a spell up in the air. They're a spell up in the air. But I'm going to try to be a little bit more planned out next week and a little less rambly. But if you've stuck with me if you've stuck with me here, thank you. Thank you for following along, and I hope you watch some good entertainment over the next week. Oh, one thing I am going to add to this. I have no plans to watch new Star Trek. I'm a very much an old school Star Trek guy. I am over the next week going to go all the way back to the beginning, and start watching Trek in air date order. And I want to sort of experience it. Like where we're at is with Star Trek is so nuts that I kind of want to go back to where it was. It really true, like the purest form of Star Trek, and start from there and get the full experience. Because I was a TNG guy, original series, and this is not a whack at the original series. This is a smacking myself in the face. It was a little slow. I was brought in a different era. It felt a little slower to me. So I want to go back and rewatch that original series a second time. So we're definitely going to be doing a revisit on Star Trek over the course of this year. One of the best sci-fi franchises of all time. So with all that said, I hope everyone has an amazing week. Have a happy Sunday, and I will see you next time.